Hello, I am back. I am so happy to be back and really excited to talk about today's film, 1971's Don't Deliver Us from Evil. I first watched this movie because I saw somebody post the poster to Instagram and I was like, looks amazing. I love me some blasphemy. And when I finally watched it, I was like, whoa, was this made for me? Or did I write it like in some alternate reality? It's awesome, but the film is not without controversy. So let's get into all of it. I'm going to spoil things for the whole stretch of the movie, but I'm not going to tell you the ending. The ending is sacred, okay? And I also wanted to warn you that there is going to be some talk of animal cruelty that happens in the film. And with that, let's dive in. Like I said, this film was released in 1971. It was directed by, I'm going to Americanize his name, Joel Seria. He also did Marie the Doll, which is another film that I reviewed on this channel. It is starring Jean Goupil and Catherine Wagoner. And here's your synopsis. Two besties, Anne and Laure, split their time between their countryside homes and the nearby Catholic boarding school. They think church is so lame, so they dedicate themselves to each other and to Satan, pledging to do evil deeds in the world. This film follows them as they experiment with wickedness. This film was highly controversial at the time of its release. I mean, it's still controversial now, I would say, because people are like, ooh, about this movie, right? It was given an X rating in the UK and it was banned in France, and this is a French film. It was described at the time as unhealthy, perverted, sadistic, and destructive. And if that doesn't make me want to watch something, I don't know what does. This is a coming-of-age film with a very dark tone, a dark nature to it. It gets lumped in with horror movies, generally. But we'll get more into is it actually a horror or not later. As I've already alluded to, I really love this movie. It's got this carefree sundresses, flowers, flower crowns, rolling meadows, countryside sort of vibe, which is heavily contrasted with the concept of Satan and evil. So I just love that combination in this movie. So this film is about two main girls, Anne, who's played by Jeanne, and Laure, who's played by Catherine. Anne is more of the leader of the group, but you do see Laure having plenty of agency of her own, and I think she really manages to match Anne's freak, if you will. And part of why this film is so bothersome to people is that these girls, they're supposed to be playing like young teenagers. They're like, what, 19 and 21 approximately during the time of the film's release. So they are technically adult women, but they do look very young. So they are really fitting in this like young teenager. They really pull it off. But sometimes you can see in their mannerisms that they are a little bit older, but I think generally at first glance, they do look like they're like 14. So we have Anne, who has very dark features, and Laure, who has very light features, and I love that contrast between the two, just visually. And by the way, Anne's haircut, that is my dream haircut. I really want it. Like, I've tried to do something similar right now, but I just feel like no hairstylist is gonna understand the assignment. And fun fact, this actress cut her hair herself like that for this role. Can she please come do mine? So Anne's attitude is just like so rebellious, bad girl, so like nonchalant, like the kind of girl who's like the bad girl who's smoking behind the bleachers, skipping PE or something, just that sort of vibe, but obviously too elevated to a much more extreme level. She's just this ruthless, stone-faced, really troll. She's a troll. And the interesting thing that you'll see about Anne and Laure is they fake it, you know? They put on a face, they look like they're conforming and just like obedient, good, respectable girls, and they have everybody fooled. There are some other characters in the movie. They're pretty minor compared to the focus, which is the two main girls. But there are some adults, you know, teachers, parents, servants, all of that kind of stuff. And now let's talk about the story. So we get introduced to Anne and Laura at the boarding school, and pretty quickly it becomes clear that they're just really not into the whole church thing. Like, they do not subscribe to it. They don't subscribe to religion. They like reading smut, and just being naughty, kind of like stirring up trouble and stuff. They basically think that do-gooders are wasting their time. A lot of times Anne and Laura kind of at night when everyone's supposed to be asleep, they like get in one bed together and hide under the covers and talk, and they decide that they would like to dedicate themselves to Satan. There's so much to love about this movie. Like, this girl is writing in her diary like, yep, I love Satan, and then she just gets up and like carries on with her day looking like a little princess. It's just so cute. So on the weekends, Anne and Laura, this is what I'm gathering anyway, on the weekends, Anne and Laura go home to their respective homes to spend the weekend with their parents, whatever. Anne is really the main focus. Like, she's who we get to see her house more. She and her family seem very well-to-do. You know, they got this big like castle-looking house. They got servants, all that kind of stuff. And this reminds me of a little bit of, I think it's Dracula AD 1972. I think that, or maybe it's Satanic Rites. I don't remember. But basically, one of the things that's happening in that film is there's this like group of rich people who have just experienced everything that life has to offer, really. Like, they've indulged in everything, and the only thing that's left is the dark arts. So then they get into evil stuff, right? Like the taboo. Because when you're rich, you can have everything. So then what, right? And I'm getting a little bit of that here in a way, because these girls have everything. They're well-to-do. They're probably set for life. So they need some way to get thrills, right? So they turn to evil, which we'll get to. So like I mentioned, these girls are definitely faking it, right? They are acting like, amen, but they're not about it. And they're really good at fooling everybody. And I don't know, like that, I felt like that was resonant with me as well, because not like I'm not evil, but personally, I do just try to be a normal member of society, even though I don't feel like one. Maybe you can relate. Part of why this film was so controversial upon its release is it's like anti-religious messaging. And there's a scene in this movie where the girls are at church, and the priest is preaching, and the camera is showing members of the congregation in this almost like comedy kind of way. Like, one of the members of the congregation is picking their nose or whatever. And that's just like such a subtle little, it's making a mockery of religious people in the most subtle way. And at church, Anne and Laura take communion, and I was like, okay, I mean, they're really doing everything, right? But then I realized that they were just hiding the crackers in their mouth, and then they took them out. It's just like the principle of it, you know? It's like it doesn't matter one way or another, right? Because no, God isn't watching. Or maybe God is watching and that's why they're doing it. But it's funny because it doesn't matter one way or another. Like, eat the cookie, spit out the cookie, it's whatever. Like, because who are you really, you know? But they still make it a point to not take that cookie. I always want to call it a cookie. Another little account of mischief here. The girls are sneaking around one night, and they look in a keyhole. I guess it's one of the nuns' rooms. They look in the keyhole, and two of the nuns are kissing, giving us a little nunsploitation moment. So what does Anne do with that information? She takes it and goes and confesses it to the priest, acting like she's all upset about it, right? But she knows that it's going to make the priest a little bit excited. You know what I mean? Just trolling. So Anne and Laura have resolved to be evil, right? So it's time to get down to business. Their first act of real evil occurs. I think it's like a vacation from school. So they're home, and also Anne's parents are gone for a long period of time. They go bike riding and they see a farmer's son named Emil. They decide they're gonna mess with him in their little sundresses. Basically what they do is they seduce and provoke him to the point where he attacks. He attacks Lore. And it's very upsetting, it's disturbing, but it's not too bad because Lore manages to escape and get away before he really does anything. And then, okay, and it's so weird. So they keep getting themselves into these situations that are extremely dangerous, but they're like unfazed. As soon as they like break free, they're like, ha ha ha, and laughing and riding their bikes again. Their next act of evil is in the residence of who I believe is one of Anne's servants. It's a little unclear, but I'll be real with you. Sometimes I have man face blindness. So this guy, he has a lot of birds. And Anne is like, we're gonna kill his birds one by one. Like, not all, we're not gonna kill them all at once. We're gonna do one at a time so that he suffers for longer. It's just really horrible and upsetting. The third act of evil, I believe this is going back to Emil, that rapist farmhand. They go and look in his window. It's nighttime. They go and look at his window. He's eating dinner with his family and they are laughing at him because he's so poor and ugly. And then they set his, like, all of his hay on fire. And maybe his barn. They set a bunch of his stuff on fire and ride away on their bikes. So these are just like the pre-initiation acts. We have not even had our ceremony yet where they formally dedicate themselves to Satan. But now it's finally time. This is probably the most iconic stretch of the movie and the most visually beautiful, okay? They're in all white and they're using a bunch of religious paraphernalia that they have lifted from the church or the school. So I do like that they've sort of transgressively subverted these symbols for their opposite meaning, like using them for their opposite meaning. This is just that kind of contrast that I really love. Like the innocent look with evil. I mean, that's why I like Hammer Nightgown Vampire Women. It's that same kind of thing. Just someone who looks very innocent, but isn't. Yeah, so the girls, they're wearing their white, they're wearing their flower crowns, they're doing this, but it's for Satan. They do have a man officiating the ceremony. I think it might be the bird man. They put rings on each other's hands, they prick each other's fingers and like lick each other's blood. Oh, they got candelabras, they got incense smoke. It's just a beautiful vibe. And then they go out into the night with their candelabras. Again, did I write this? And they get on a little boat and it's just a whole beautiful thing. They do end up doing the same thing to this guy that they did to the farmhand dude. Like provoke him to the point of trying to attack them and then they get away. And they're just having a ball with this. After they have been initiated, Anne goes to the bird man's house again. And she's doing like the meanest stuff, but it's so creative. She was like going through his clothes and she takes out a nice shirt he has and tears it and then folds it back up and puts it back in the drawer. And then I think she takes like his underpants or something and burns the crotch of it and then puts it back. And then she goes for another bird. I feel like birds in films, it's even worse than when like the dog dies, because birds are even more innocent. Okay, now we get to like one of the main driving plot moments of the movie. Anne and Laura are riding their little bikes talking about maybe blackmailing somebody, and they see a man pulled over on the side of the road because his car broke down. But dude, we are in the middle of nowhere, so you're SOL. But Anne is like, you can come to my house, because her parents aren't home, remember? So they take this man to Anne's house. They have like a little guest house thing, so they're hanging out there. So Anne and Laura, it was raining or something, so they take their clothes off and they're like drying off in front of the fire. They pour him some J&B and they start asking him some questions. They ask all these questions like, are you married? Are you good in bed or something? Like, have you ever had an affair? All kinds of very intrusive questions. Well, Anne steps out to get some firewood and Laura, it's always Laura, gets jumped by this guy, you know. Anne comes back and Just like, this is where you can really see the protectiveness between these two girls and like how much they love each other, because Ian comes back in and she's like, oh hell no. So she grabs a piece of firewood and beats this man on the head, and he's dead. But you can see the humanity in these girls instantly, because they're like, we just killed someone. Well, that escalated quickly, am I right? But yeah, the fun and games are over. Like, stuff got serious. So they decide they're gonna dump him in the lake and just hopefully no one will notice. But unfortunately, I think he is found, like his body is found. Either way, the cops are questioning girls at the school, and somehow Anne and Lore either have become suspects or they think that they are suspects. They get very, very paranoid and very upset as the investigation goes on. They are pretty much like, we're fucked, right? They are like, they're gonna separate us. Like, they are crying and clinging to each other. And as the investigation is closing in around them, that's where I'll stop telling you the story. But trust, if you haven't seen this, the ending is wild. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the like themes that stood out to me in this movie. And one of them, and this is just what I called it, like the you're holy but you're sexy. Even one of the first scenes in this movie, there's somebody, I think maybe it's a nun, I don't remember. It's somebody at the boarding school. You can see the silhouette of them like getting dressed for bed, and you can see their like body or whatever, even though basically they can't use their body. Does that make sense? Like, they can't be sexy, but they are. And same with like the priest who's getting a little tingly when he hears about the nuns kissing, but he can't, you know? I mean, and the nuns doing what they were doing, right? You're holy, but you're sexy. The next little theme that I noticed was this natural disbelief, is what I'm calling it. Anne and Lore had this innate knowing that the church was bogus. Nobody even told them that. They're just not falling for it. It's interesting because children are usually very compliant. They're very easily like indoctrinated, right? But these girls somehow were immune to that, which it makes me think back to like rebels from throughout history. Like, not everybody subscribes, and it comes from within. That rebellion comes from within. Like, they're not even being influenced by someone who's telling them, hey, this is not real. They just don't buy it. Now, something that I do wonder, because they are like being all pro Satan, it's not really clear if they actually, or if they're like being theistic about it, or if Satan is just like an idea they use in order to reject Christianity. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if they really believe that Satan is down there hearing their prayers, but you know, that's something that's up for interpretation from us, the audience. And kind of going off of that, the theme of just the pull of the taboo, the appeal of the taboo. These young teenage girls have this morbid curiosity. They are drawn to something darker. They're drawn to what is forbidden. And like I mentioned before, I like that these girls just look unsuspecting and normal. Okay, like if you think, the only movie I could come up with off the top of my head is something like The Craft, right? And then you have Nancy looking like a witch, like what you think a witch would look like, and then she's going and doing those witchy things, right? But with these girls, they just look normal. And I like that even better. Like, I think that's even scarier. And so kind of going off of that, this idea of innocent evil. This idea that these two proper, young, beautiful girls could be so monstrously wicked is terrifying. And like I said before, the imagery of like sundresses and flowers and meadows and bike rides and white gowns contrasting with these deeds of evil is just, that's just my shit. Another theme that really stood out was that of friendship. This friendship just really speaks to me. It's a friendship that is so close that it seems romantic. Their friendship was like the foundation for forsaking everything for each other and also just rejecting all norms of society because they have each other. And finally, this idea of bringing out the worst in everybody. I feel like that truly was part of Anne and Laura's mission, was to bring out the worst in everybody. Think of them like provoking the priest and then seducing these men, questioning their guest, like trying to get dirt on him. It seems like they think no one is really innocent, like nobody is really a good person. And especially with men, they target men a lot. So it seems like they're trying to break down any facade of an innocent man because they just believe there's someone bad in there. And they really seem to get a thrill out of triggering this like carnal animal man in all of these guys, because in a way it's almost like flicking on their like weak mode, you know, and then they're just left laughing. The difficult parts to watch in this film, it ranges. It's mostly involving the animals. It's what's really most upsetting for me. Like, Anne has a kitten in her house and she pets it so rough. It's just a little baby kitten. And then the bird stuff. When I watched this most recently, I couldn't do the birds. I don't know, man. And then when the Birdman finds his birds. But yes, if you are, depending on how you react to films, if you're in like a depressed state of mind, this wouldn't be a good one to watch. Now, is it a horror movie? After the murder, it sort of turns into a crime movie in a way. The movie becomes all about this murder and trying to cover it up. The fantasy part, like the fairy tale part, just dies. And then things get serious, like I said. But it kind of reminds me of like when you have to sober up real quick. It's like that. And looking back on this film, I realized that it's not supernatural in any way. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Is Satan really a force in this movie? Or is he just like a concept that the girls use as inspiration? As far as we know, this is a completely secular film. Like, there is no Satan doing anything, like playing any part in this movie. Is this a horror movie? Well, it is shocking. And why is it shocking? Well, these girls are super young. There's a lot of near SA happening in the movie. There's a lot of animal cruelty in the movie. And just like crime, like adolescent crime. But see, and that's where it's like, is this horror? Because we're getting sort of out of that. So Wikipedia called this a horror drama, which makes sense. But the movie just has this darkness over it. The movie itself feels very taboo, which does lend to that horror leaning. So some final thoughts. I am obsessed with Jeanne Goupil. I love her. I want to buy her Playboy so bad. Also, Mondo Macabro, which is that's the DVD that I have. They have an interview with her from '06, and she's brilliant. I love everything she says. I'm gonna link that interview down below. I love to call this a movie for the girls, but hopefully others can enjoy it too. It's not very accessible. It was on YouTube for a time. It's not on there anymore. At this point, it is not streaming anywhere. I have it on DVD, and I think it's also gotten a Blu release recently. It's just a really nice time. It's disturbing but delightful, a little bit funny, it's beautiful, and overall shocking. So it really takes you through a whole range of emotions. If I were to put Don't Deliver Us from Evil in a 3-pack, what would I do? If it was to come in a little set? Several films came to mind, such as 13, Poison for the Fairies, but ultimately I think I'm gonna have to go with Alucarda because of the nuns, the school, the best friends who love each other beyond words. And then I would also go with Valerie and Her Week of Wonders, just for this like coming of age, beautiful, innocent imagery contrasting with the presence of evil. Ooh, and there we have it. Those are my thoughts on Don't Deliver Us from Evil. Y'all, I bought this probably 2 years ago in anticipation for this moment. I made this crown. Like, it has been a process, and I've finally done it. So before we go, I have to thank my members. I have soft launched memberships on this channel. But I want to say, I think this will be good for everybody, even non-paying audience, because it's going to force me to have a schedule, right? I'll have to have a schedule so that I can create routine stuff and then create extra stuff for members. So it's like, I can't give them extra until I do like the routine, right? So now I have to do it all. So pray for me. We're doing it. Anyway, let me thank my members. JordanC, who is the Edwige level. Thank you, JordanC. You rock. And Laserbeak, who is in my Dagmar level. I wanted to thank you guys so much for your early support and your patience throughout this early period of my memberships. And that'll do it. Please let me know what you think of Don't Deliver Us from Evil. I love to hear people's thoughts because some people get the ick from this movie and then some people love it. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Ciao!